Good evening and welcome
Recording
to
in
the
progress.
Standing Committee meeting on Finance, Operations, and Governance held today, Monday, November 18th. And I would ask for the clerk to call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Biancaria.
Here.
Member Johnson.
Here.
Member Roy.
Here.
Chairperson McCullough.
Here. So we have several items that we'll be taking tonight. The first 5 items, I believe, so GB 4-73, to review the status of the FY25 budget and make appropriate transfers as required. Will also include budget 500-2204, instructional materials. Member Johnson made a motion to consider during the first quarter fiscal report in October that if any surplus funds are available, they be added to this account. Item GB 4-78, to approve the second meal, breakfast, lunch, snack, and adult meal prices for the 2024-2025 school year, and to provide an update on the payment portal for the school nutrition program, a request made by Member Biancaria. Item SA 3-3, to provide proper funding and resources to organizations and clubs held after school that offer opportunities to students and allow them to become more involved in their school community. And item ROS 4-10, to receive details about the contract for tutoring services that includes the cost of services and data on the educational growth of students who utilize these services. So I will open it up to administration.
Thank you, and to the chair. So I'm going to ask Administrative Director of Finance, Sarah Consavo, to walk through the first quarter report, and then as part of the backup that's contained, does address some of the motions that you just read, and then certainly will answer any questions that the school committee has.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Through the chair, the quarter one report represents all financial transactions through the end of September and includes projected account balances through the end of the fiscal year in June. As noted in the narrative, the 25 budget amount will be increased by $61,501 from the final state budget when the city sets this year's tax rates. A few accounts to note: due to the reduction of building substitutes, the teacher substitute salary line provides coverage for 70 daily substitutes as well as the capacity for 35 long-term positions through quarter one. The projected balance is the year-to-date vacancy savings for these substitute positions, and estimates are included through the month of June. The custodial salaries account includes vacancy savings of approximately 10 vacant positions through the end of August. The facility team has already onboarded the majority of vacant positions, and any projections of vacant positions are included in the estimates through June. The Personal Services 130 account includes a settlement payment processed in the month of July. And for miscellaneous OM 500-136 account, the adopted budget included a portion of ARP funds available from the city to support several district student platforms within line A for fees and licenses. But due to the funding requirements for the use of the ARP funds, we were required to reallocate expenditures to fully utilize. This impacted expenditures from ESSER as well as the district's instructional material account as included in the projected balance. For the unemployment compensation account, the current year-to-date claims through September are trending higher than budget and will have additional analysis completed through the second quarter as the monthly invoices become available. Accounts we're watching more closely through the fiscal year as we plan for FY26 is the health insurance account. The district has increased active enrollments as employees are onboarded, resulting in a projected deficit through June. Teaching and paraeducator staff have been the highest increases of enrollments since the budget was developed in the spring. We continue with ongoing monthly analysis of this account. The other account to note is the transportation account as it relates to McKinney-Vento and foster care transportation. With the new 7D vehicles, the transportation department continues to onboard 7D drivers as they become available and trained to provide these services in lieu of contracting with vendors. However, the district has received more than 100 new requests since the start of the school year. And the transportation continues to manage with the most cost-effective option when required to contract with outside vendors. Overall, the quarter one report is estimating at a $76,000 deficit at this point in the fiscal year, We continue to work on analysis for special education tuition and building utilities as monthly invoices are received. The report also includes district federal grant entitlement allocations. The largest increase is within Title I at $186,000, and the largest decrease is with our IDEA allocation at a reduction of $93,000. Overall, the district realized a total increase of $166,000 for these funds combined. Upon building the FY25 budget, the district utilized the 24 award amounts, and with the increase of Title I and Title IV, we were able to shift some of the focus instructional coach positions within the grants to sustain the level of service for these positions. This concludes the overall of quarter one, and I can take any questions.
Thank you. And my first question, I know I had made a call earlier just to inquire a little bit, just if we could explain a little bit more about I just want to make sure, it's called the administrative salaries line. Just to clarify that these were not new administrative positions that were created or added after the budget was approved, but they are actually due to staffing, temporary vacancies where, maybe an assistant principal is now filling in for a principal who's on leave. So now that money goes from the teacher salary account to the admin salary account and things like that. So if administration could just explain a little bit of that to clarify that they are not new positions themselves.
To the chair, you actually did a great job explaining that. So these are not new positions. We have a number of positions, administrative positions out on leave. They are backfill. Acting principal positions are generally coming from the assistant principal ranks. Their salaried assistant principals are in the teacher account as they're now acting principal. They're being paid for out of the proper cost center, out of the administrative account. So it's really just a balance of those two accounts. It's mostly the filling in of temporary positions to cover leaves within the administrative account.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. The only other thing I think right now, as far as we look at the school nurse salaries, so the deficit is due to an increase of substitute coverage. Now, is there anything that we feel is specifically associated with that, or it's just normal substitute coverage for nurses?
Through the chair, I think that's a consistent trend that we've seen over the last couple of years. In order to ensure coverage, the school nurse administration has been using the substitute account, and perhaps this is a line item we can look at to fund differently or more appropriately in FY26.
Thank you. Member Biancarri?
Thank you. When we look at the transportation, the detail of this speaks of the 132 new McKinney, Vento, and foster care student transportation requests. So is that in addition to the 100 requests, or is that included?
Through the chair, that's included. It's
So-
132 total requests.
So it's 132 total for requests. Is that why we're at the minus 31?
Through the chair, so no, this would be for contracted services out of the 540-103 account down below for contracted service, which currently is zero. The reason that it's zero is because we actually have some state funding, the immigrant grant, that's
Okay.
available to us this year. It appears this year only. There may be some additional funding coming, we're not sure yet, that is used to offset that cost. So that's one-time money from the state for immigrant students that we're using to defray the cost of McKinney-Vento transportation.
Okay. All right. And that's included in the 132,
Yes.
those requests
Yes.
also, correct? Okay. When we look at 540-91124, which is the crossing guard salaries, are we looking at this as the present crossing guards we have, and do we have every position filled?
Through the chair, so I was just looking at this list today. I think there's a couple of vacancies, but the school safety director is in communication with both human resources and the school in terms of identifying potential candidates. Generally, those positions are filled by the school, and so we're supporting the schools in filling the couple of vacant positions that exist.
Okay, so we're just looking at two.
Yes, 2 or 3, yes.
2 or 3 at, do we know what schools or no?
I don't have that information.
Okay. The reason I ask that is because Belmont Street and Worcester Tech I hope we're not shot there, because that's where we have, if that's a state road, and no matter how we look at this, they never use the bridge there, and then Worcester Tech teachers are out every day directing, so I don't want to be shot there.
Through the
Sure,
chair,
there's
I
other
don't
sites
believe-
in the same position. However, those two come to mind right away.
Through the chair, actually, we had a meeting on that today between facilities and the school safety director. Those positions, I don't believe, are vacant, and the Worcester Police have been tremendously helpful. There
Yes.
is significant increase in the use of that bridge. So there's only a couple of exceptions where parents and students are not using the bridge to cross, and so we're making provisions on making sure that that bridge is accessible even throughout the winter.
We did have, thank you for bringing that up, we did have, I attended 2 different sites for neighborhood meetings. Both times that was brought up, both times the Worcester Police were there discussing what they've been working on and what they're promoting and advocating for. So that's good to hear that it is working out as far as that's concerned, because that's always a big piece of the issues that we have with those 2 locations. Excuse me. The other piece that I look at, and lastly, is the 509,70203, the custodial overtime salaries. Can you just help me out on why that would be minus on that?
Certainly, for a number of reasons. Number one, when there's vacancies, they get contractual manpower overtime to cover that vacancy. So that's predominantly the reason there'd be a deficit, because while there's periods of vacancy, the existing custodians within that building get contractual manpower, which comes out of that line item.
And do we know the number of vacancies that we have at this time?
Through the chair, so there was a point when there were 10 vacancies, and I believe most of those, there's a couple of, I don't have the exact number, but many of those positions are now filled.
And that will then revert into a positive, or we hope that it does, I guess. You want to let me know how that works?
Yeah, through the chair, so we've always, for many, many years, we've looked at both the custodial salaries, which has a balance of $299,000 in this deficit, as always offsetting. What we don't know is winter overtime usage.
Right.
But other than that, as long as we stay within the custodial salaries and the overtime canceling each other out, then we feel that we're within balance.
Okay. Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you. Member Johnson?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, to the administration, my guess is I missed this. The administrative salary, so the coordinator of transitions and the coordinator of the alternative program, can you explain those positions again for me?
So
Did we cut those during budget?
So through the chair, we did a reorganization during budget. Those were then funded at teacher level type positions with what had been in the teacher account. But then after that, we negotiated the change for those positions to exist. So that's really just a swap from teacher funding to the administrative line.
Okay.
I believe the school committee was notified during the summer of those changes.
I don't recall that. Can we just get an update on that? Just a follow-up email or something on how that all played out? I just don't recall that.
Certainly.
Just want to make sure. Other than that, I have no questions.
Member Roy?
I have no questions.
Member Biancarria requested she had one other question, so go back to Member Biancarria.
Thank you. On page 4, you mentioned Perkins, but it's not in the list here under the first quarter report. So the Perkins piece says it increased allocation supports 3 teacher positions for Chapter 74, and it's a program expansion of after-school programs. What site would that be taking place at this particular time?
Through the chair, I believe it's district-wide after-school programming, not specific to a
I'm
site.
sorry, what was that response?
District-wide.
District-wide in the offer, or I'm wondering what site we have 3 teacher positions for Chapter 74 after school. So,
Through the chair, that's 2 separate categories. The 3 teaching positions, I believe, are all at Worcester Tech.
Okay.
Correct.
They can be funded through program expansion up to 3 years out of Perkins and then have to go into the general fund after that.
Okay, so we have 3 different programs in addition to the other programs that we had under Chapter 74 in after-school programs. Is that correct? Because that's how this reads in it.
Through the chair, the after-school programs would be separate from those 3 teaching positions?
Expansion, support of-
There's a comma there.
Okay, so,
I'm not sure if I understand the question. The
right,
after-school
so
program is separate.
So
it
under,
says the-
so under,
maybe I'm reading this incorrectly.
yeah, we
So-
try it this way. So under Perkins, if we're expanding programs, which could include just expanding the number of students taking those programs, we can fund those positions under Perkins.
Right.
So there's 3 positions of which we're doing that.
So are they during the day?
Yes, they're during the
Okay.
day at Worcester Tech.
It's because it says support of after-school programs.
So in addition to that, we're also using Perkins funds to support after-school programming for Chapter 74 programs, and also the corresponding health insurance for those 3 teachers.
All right, so it's a dual, it's
two
maybe
separate-
instead of a comma, it should be and, because as I'm reading it, I can't seem to get it, but I understand what you said verbally. So we have an after-school programs, and we have expansion of 3, and those are probably at Worcester Tech.
Yes.
All right, I make a motion that we receive the information as far as what those 3
Certainly.
teachers would be working on, because it is interesting, basically, when we look at Chapter 74, what we would be advocating for, and if there's an increase, so they would need additional people in carpentry or plumbing, electrical. So what are we looking at that the kids have an interest in that we needed to increase the number of teachers that we had? Which is good. Don't have an issue with that. I'm just trying to figure out what area is being advocated for that we would need additional people. So if we could get that, I'd really appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so then the motion would be to hold the GB 4-73, and then to file the corresponding items, but then also 2 motions, one from Member Johnson to get an update on the structure referenced in the administrative salaries column, and Member Biancarria's motion for the positions that are referenced in the 3 Perkins positions, and if we could get both of those in a Friday letter. So again, to hold GB 4-73, I believe that's correct, Mr. Allen, right? That's the quarterly. And then file the remaining corresponding items and get those 2 motions in a Friday letter. So if I could ask the clerk to call the roll on that, please.
Vice Chair Biancaria.
Yes.
Member Johnson.
Yes.
Member Roy.
Yes.
Chairperson McCullough.
Yes, thank you. So then we have GB 4-100 filed by myself to get an update on the VersaTrans MyStop app and its functionality. So I'll open that up to administration.
Thank you to the chair. So with us tonight is Mike Freeman, Director, and Wayne Cardwell, the Acting Assistant Director for Transportation, and they'll walk you through this report.
Thank you.
Okay, so the MyStop app is our current GPS tracking app that have a total of 13,502 users that have signed up for it. 2,202 curb-to-curb users, 10,991 regular ed users, and 309 between private and parochial users. The real-time GPS tracking tracks the location of the bus in real time and supplies that location to the parent. The current issue we're seeing with the tracking of the real time is there seems to be a lag in some of the routes, and this is being contributed by a couple of factors. One of them is that the system uses cellular service, so there's some dead spots in Worcester that Verizon services and come in, so it might, if the bus enters that service, they might see the route stop updated, and then when it's out of that service, it all of a sudden shows down the road because it lost service. The other issue that we're having is there's 2 types of GPS tracking on a school bus. One of them is offered by the tablet that the driver uses for directions, route sheet, different stuff. The other GPS tracker is a GeoTab. The GeoTab is built into the school bus. It does the telematics of the school bus, and it has a more accurate GPS tracking system. We have the program to pull the GPS tracking off of that, but for some reason, sometimes when a driver logs into his tablet, the system's kicking over to pull the GPS off of that tablet, which creates, for that route, if it does do that, a really bad lag, because those tablets don't refresh. The pings don't refresh as quick as the GeoTab does. And then those tablets also tend to lose service more because they're inside the bus. It's a tablet running off a cellular service, so it has the bus sometimes interferes with the signal. So we're working with Tyler to try to correct that, to see why the tablets keep overriding on certain routes. So hopefully we'll get a resolution on that. We did just do an update on November 9th to the system that hopefully anticipate reduces that lag time in that transfer. I haven't had any complaints so far since we've done the update. I think we've only had one, and it was just for a reset of a password. And then the other part is in ETA. The other thing the app does is gives you an ETA to when the bus will arrive to your stop. There's a couple challenging issues with that. One is the route doesn't actually show active until it's on that route, starts that route. Some of them, it doesn't start the route until it's at the first stop. So if you're on that route and you're the first stop, it's not actually going to show arriving until it actually is there. What it'll show is, it says it'll show the scheduled anticipated arrival time, which just pulling off the system what it's saying that on paper what it should arrive at, and then once it starts the route, everything updates to actual estimated arrival times. So I'm just trying to figure out a way to fix that for those first students on the route, to show a more accurate arrival time. The other function that the app has is it has push notifications. We tend to not to use it. The only time I've actually ever used it is in school delays, because it's very easy to put out to all the routes that there's a delay. A couple of reasons that we're working through that we don't use it is, one, of the communication piece of it. You type into a box and you push it out and it goes to the parents. We don't want the wording of it to be for our liaisons to word something improperly and have it create more of a panic. So we're working through that to try to train them on coming up with just generic messages that we can put through with different delays, so we don't create a panic if, a school bus gets into an accident and they push out there that, hey, this school bus has been in an accident, and all of a sudden you have a bunch of parents calling wondering what happened. So we're working through that, but all in all, it was our first version of a tracking software. This MyStop is like version 1. We're looking to upgrade our whole system for technology that would create a new app for us that would be more reliable, have more functions. So we're working through Tyler with that. The migration of that new software we're trying to do this school year, so hopefully by the end of the school year we'll have that in place that will kind of really upgrade and bring us to a cloud-based service that would make this function a lot better.
Thank you so much. I know that, certainly everyone has been very excited since we finally did get the app up and running, and just had heard some of these concerns this year that, it seemed that it functioned a little bit better last year, or there's some struggles this year, but everything you just explained is exactly what I would have been asking about. So it sounds like we're trying to get a way to update different things. We're working on a new software opportunity that hopefully will be more cloud-based, so the lags aren't as concerning, the difference between the tablet and the GeoTab and everything else on the bus. So you pretty much answered any question I think that I had about it. I'm just happy that we're continuing to work on it and looking at that. And again, like we say with everything, ideally if budgets are better in the future, some of those staff positions that you had that were working with some of the calls that were coming in, it's something that we can look at bringing back. So that helps with some of that customer service end of things. So I don't have any questions on this, so I'll move it over to Member Biancaria.
At this time, I would ask, what is the biggest challenge with this particular program?
It's reliability and losing service. There's a lot of moving parts to it to make sure that it runs properly. So, for instance, like I talked about the upgrade. The upgrade would make it to a cloud base. Right now, this is all server based. Every part of our technology is individually based, and we rely on bridges to communicate between each of the components to make everything work properly. Those bridges sometimes can be unreliable. It breaks, and if that breaks, then the system goes down. The cellular service sometimes can be unreliable, especially if the tablet overrides it. I know at the beginning, when we first rolled this out, it was when we first took over transportation, and we only had about 10% of our drivers using tablets. We have 100% of our drivers using tablets now, so that we're seeing that more overrides happening more frequently, which has created the illusion that there's a more lag than when we first rolled it out, because people weren't actually using the tablets when we first rolled it out. So it's just working through those pieces.
And everyone has been sufficiently trained to use these tablets, correct?
Yes.
And they're comfortable with that? And
Yes, there was a little bit of pushback when we first rolled them out, but now it's almost like the driver will not go out without the tablet because they don't want to revert back to the paper.
Okay. So when you look at the new system, you feel as confident that the new system will take care of some of the bridges that you are looking at as far as when it's going down versus when it's working completely?
Yes.
What would you say do you know the percent that it's been down since we started school this year?
I don't.
Okay. Might be something we want to look at as far as what we can do and how we can look at it. And are we looking at do we know what the cost is going to be for a new system?
I do not know that off the top of my head. I believe we do have those numbers. The new system, there's no more added cost yearly because it's the same system, it's just their newer version of it, but there is a migration cost of turning it over from the old system to the new
Right.
system.
So is it that I make a motion that we receive the information as far as dollars are concerned? And then if we have the opportunity, I'd also like to add in the dollars on that, but also what is we're looking at a percent of how long it was, when it was down and how long it was down. If we could get that information also.
Member Johnson?
I have no questions.
Member Roy?
I just have a quick question. How many parents and caregivers use the app to track their child's transportation, the bus? Do we know?
Through the chair, we don't have the exact number currently, but Tyler is working on updating our system so we can actually see how many people are logging in daily.
Okay, I request that we get a report on that when the numbers are in.
All right, so then I would make a motion that we hold the item itself till June to get an end-of-the-year update on any new software, any updates on functionality, but in the interim, if we could get, per Member Biancarria's motion, the migration cost and any analytics around percentage of time the app or may have been down, and then Member Roy's motion on how many caregivers are utilizing the app, if we can get that in a Friday letter. Would that work for administration?
Yes.
Yes, all right. So then the motion is to hold the item itself, Casey, until June for the full update on everything for the year, but then to get those other components in a Friday letter. So if you could call the roll on that, please.
Vice Chair Biancaria.
Yes.
Member Johnson.
Yes.
Member Roy.
Yes.
Chairperson McCullough.
Yes. The next item we have is GB 4-101, to begin discussions around the potential impact on the inflation rate for next year's budget. We've talked about this several times so far in our general school committee meetings, filed this item just so that Mr. Allen could talk to us a little bit about it in here and, thinking about it when we're planning for next year's budget. So if I open that up to administration, please.
Certainly, into the chair. So the inflation factor that's used within the foundation budget is the same index that's been used since the start of education reform funding in 1993, which is the implicit price deflator for gross domestic product state and local government purchases. What that means is it's a measure of actual state and local government spending between quarters. That's the index that's been used, and I've shown what that inflation rate has been over the last 10 years in the backup. The preliminary number, as I had said at the school committee meeting, was expected to be released by the end of October, which it was. It's at 2.06% for next year. That number will be finalized through a quarterly adjustment in December, and the governor will use the adjusted number in her FY26 budget that will come out towards the end of January. It's not that the current inflation, although this number was running lower during the course of this year, we're pleased to see it's up slightly from earlier this year and is up from last year. Still, the biggest concern that the administration has is the skipped or the missed inflation amounts from FY23 and FY24, where the state does cap the amount of inflation at 4.5% compared to the actual experience. The capping of the inflation rate in those 2 years has shorted Lewis Public Schools $30 million combined over those 2 years. So we're $30 million less in our budget today than we would be otherwise. A number of proposals that had surfaced last year to address that would have left the 4.5% annual cap in place, but in a year like this year where it's 2%, you would go up to the 4.5% and just keep carrying forward the balance until the amount, which is 6%, of missed inflation is caught up. And so we certainly support that, understanding the financial pressure that an uncapped year would place on the state budget. So we had supported leaving the 4.5% cap, but carrying forward the balance until the remaining amount is caught up. So I don't know that there's any particular advocacy around the FY26 preliminary rate. I think I feel that it's the wrong inflation index to use, but that's a longer term discussion when there's a relook at the foundation budget at the next SOA check-in. I think the advocacy is still around catching up from the missed inflation from FY23 and FY24.
Thank you, and certainly, if people are looking at this backup, that makes it pretty clear to understand what we're talking about when we're talking about that capped inflation rate and how the possibility of, not going above that 4.5% cap, but making up for that gap in those FY23 and FY24 could be really advantageous to districts, particularly like ours, where it cost us $30 million when you're looking at our overall budget and what that means when we're looking at our needs as a district. I think, this answers the question about the inflation rate. My ask would be that administration would continue to keep the school committee informed if there are ways that, you think our advocacy could be beneficial, and certainly that people are perhaps watching this. I'm not sure how many people are watching it or listening or understand that you're advocating at the state level as well to your state reps and state senators and whomever else you may be able to contact to understand the importance of supporting this type of proposal and helping schools get the money that they need for their budgets. So that would be my ask at this time.
If I can just add to that, to the chair, there's really three components that dictate our funding level. The first one is our enrollment level. Mm-hmm. The second one is the phase-in of SOA, so that would be for FY26 and FY27 remaining. And then the third one is this inflation index. Those are the three ways we actually receive money from the state, and every 1% change in the inflation index is $5 million for us. So, it is a significant impact on our budget, each 1% change. So, being short the 6%, mm-hmm. At $5 million per 1% is that $30 million. Absolutely.
Thank you. Vice Chair Biancaria?
Quick question. How does that affect what we are funding per student in our schools?
Through the chair, so once the foundation budget is established, it's really up to the administration to make a recommendation to the school committee of how the budget is spent. So how we spend those dollars is entirely, ultimately, up to the school committee.
Okay. And that's what we were brought up, where it went from, if I'm not mistaken, it was at $100, but now we're down to $75.
So through the chair, again, that was a choice we made to resolve the $22 million deficit mm-hmm. For this year, pointing out if the inflation factors were completely funded, there would not have been a deficit in FY25. So because of our deficit, though, that was one of many strategies that we needed to do to balance the FY25 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Member Johnson?
I have no questions.
Member Roy?
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is to file, and certainly we'll keep an eye on this moving forward as we get ready for budget season. If the chair could call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Biancaria.
Yes.
Member Johnson.
Yes.
Member Roy.
Yes,
Chairperson McCullough.
Yes. Our next item is GB 3-240, and this was an older item filed in the fall of 2023 to request administration to review and update if needed in the district's search policy. And I know administration has provided the backup of what our current policy is, and a lot of it ties in with legal obligation as far as the search policy goes, but I will open it up to administration to review the backup.
Okay, through the chair, the Worcester Public Schools search policy aligns with the Massachusetts state's laws and the Fourth Amendment, ensuring student searches are conducted only with reasonable suspicion and in a manner that balances safety and individuals' rights. Administrators receive annual training on this policy and yearly support, which is rooted in the principle of acting in loco parentis to maintain a safe educational environment. The policy allows searches when there is a clear reason to believe a student possesses contraband or items endangering the school community, following the standards of being reasonable and non-inclusive based on the situation. It is recommended that no changes be made as the current policy meets legal and ethical obligations.
Thank you. And I certainly understand, not changing the policy. I think it's just maybe some clarity around it too, right? And that's why this came up, I think, when it did too, is, I'm happy to see that it says, there is annual training, and I'll just verify through administration that annual training does occur with all administrators, that they understand that they have the right, what the parameters are around it and things of that nature.
Through the chair, correct.
All right, thank you. I just think it's very important, we talk a lot about, the climate and culture in our buildings and school safety, and certainly just wanting to make sure that families and students are aware that their property can be searched when on school grounds, as long as it meets these parameters, and understanding that, it's important for us to keep our schools as safe as possible, and this is part of that whole process. So I don't have any desire to change the policy on this end. It's, what our policy is and follows the law. I think it's just important. I think Member Clancy brought it up at the time just so we could reiterate that, especially where we do allow backpacks to be carried in some of our high schools because of the size of them, that students know that also is included in what can be searched. Their lockers can be searched. There's the part on here about cars on school property, that is all within the authority of the school as long as it meets the parameters. So I do not have any other questions at this time. Vice Chair Biancaria?
The comment would be that I'm glad to see that we're training on an annual basis. There's a lot of training that goes on. There's a lot of subjects that are covered. We feel as though this is one of the pieces for safety, and safety has always been my top priority, so I certainly appreciate that we had this item here, and you gave us some good detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Johnson?
No comment.
Member Roy?
no questions.
Thank you. So then the motion would be to file this item. If the chair could call, if the clerk could call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Biancaria.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Member Johnson.
Yes.
Member Roy.
Yes,
Chairperson McCullough.
Yes, and our final item tonight is GB 3-243, which had been filed by Member Mailman also in the fall of 2023. Requested administration report generally how it responds to concerns of student alleging abuse or about whom MGL Chapter 11951A report is filed. And I believe this is also something that, follows the letter of the law. And certainly it's an important topic when we're talking about something like this, but ensuring that we as a district are following these policies is always a good reminder. So I would just open that up to administration as well, just to review with us, please.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair, when a WPS staff member suspects child abuse or neglect, they are required to file a 51A report with the Department of Children and Families, DCF. This process involves first reporting the abuse, so the staff must report suspicions of abuse or neglect to DCF. Consultation, staff may consult with school administrators or other counselors to clarify observations and ensure proper handling of each case. Immediate oral report, if there is a reasonable cause, an oral report is made to DCF immediately. Our written reports are a detailed written 51A report, which must be submitted within 48 hours of the oral report. Cooperation with DCF, which is important. School staff must assist with DCF's investigations by providing any requested information. And then confidentiality, information is kept confidential and shared only with individuals directly involved. Staff are trained annually on these responsibilities to ensure compliance and protect students effectively.
Thank you. And again, I think there's something important that you mentioned again, that the training does happen annually, that staff are aware, that administrators, are disseminating that information to their staff as well. And, when we look at the whole backup too, it included some of the information around bullying, which I think is, a topic that still obviously, unfortunately, comes up much too often. But, we've had some recent things in the past few weeks with, I know some social media concerns and things like that, but I've really appreciated the district response to that and taking it seriously and being shared with families that, this is we have a responsibility at our level around these things, but, we're all in this together, and how families can be supportive in these types of anti-bullying, I don't want to say initiatives, but efforts, right? It's really important that students know that that's a serious thing and that there are consequences for those actions, and how we can all help prevent some of those instances as far as bullying goes. But then, of course, when we're talking about anything with child abuse, knowing that we follow the proper protocol is important, and I appreciate the administration's backup around this. Vice Chair Biancaria?
Thank you. Both are very important. Both refer to keeping people safe and the intervention and preventing it versus waiting for something to happen to then take the action. So I certainly look at this as something we have to continue to discuss. You mentioned that staff is trained annually. Is it on both the 51A reporting and so on, along with the bullying?
Yes, that's correct.
So
the chair,
both
excuse me.
areas, there is training annually. How, and perhaps we can have this as another piece of this item, and that is, what are we doing with our students to ensure that they are looking at bullying as something that we're taking seriously, whether it be the cyberbullying or bullying one-on-one, face-to-face, group with group? Are we having any progress in moving kids in groups to discuss this and make this a priority?
Through the chair, I think the best, what we're doing now is that anti-bullying program, which brings everybody together. But I think that's something that we can come back and report on and talk about more on.
Okay. Then I make a motion that we look at what are we doing with the bullying issues and the anti-programs, whether it be cyberbullying or one-on-one or groups. So we have a better feel of how we're not only dealing with our staff, which is great for the training, but we also want to work with our students so they're well aware that we take this seriously.
Member Johnson?
No, I actually interested in Member Biancarria's motion as well.
Okay. Member Roy?
I agree. I'm interested to see what comes of the report that Member Biancaria is asking for.
Okay.
So other than that, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Would a March timeframe work for administration, get a report back on that?
I think so.
All right, so then the motion, so we're going to hold GB 3-243 with Member Biancaria's motion to get an updated report around our anti-bullying programs, as well as anything surrounding bullying that we need to be updated on as a committee. So then the motion would be to hold with that motion incorporated in that. If the clerk could call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Biancaria?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Roy?
Yes.
Chairperson McCullough?
Yes. And that brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. So the motion is to adjourn. If the clerk could call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Biancaria?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Roy?
Yes.
Chairperson McCullough?
Yes.